So in this lesson, we're going to be going over some more basics of JavaScript. So one of the questions that often comes up is, where do I put my JavaScript? Sometimes you might see JavaScript in the head, sometimes you might see it in the body, and you might see it elsewhere in between as well. So you might see it sometimes when you go into a website and you might see something like this, where it's got document write, hello, this is JavaScript. And what this is going to do is this is going to render out this JavaScript code in this location. So when we do document write, it actually renders it out onto the page. And when we refresh it, we get that hello world, and then we get that rendered out. So there's a number of different places to place your JavaScript, but usually the best practice is to keep your JavaScript at the bottom and link out to your JavaScript file. So create a brand new file. So I've created a brand new file. I've just called it JavaScript.js, and here you can see my file structure. So I've got my index.html and I've got my JavaScript.js file, and I'm just going to do another alert here. So when the page loads, it's actually going to load the JavaScript from the javascript.js file, and the way to link that is to do a script source and make sure that you get the right URL for the source. So here I can just simply link to it. If the path is within your file structure, you got to make sure that you do get the right path to the JavaScript file. And now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to delete out the rest of this JavaScript. And there's basically several reasons to use an external file over these internal files. So when you're developing a website, you're going to more than likely have more than one page. So you're going to have more than just the index.html. You're going to have multiple pages. And when you link out to a JavaScript file, this is going to save you the trouble of rewriting all of that JavaScript over and over and over again on every single page. All you have to do is link out to that file, and now even if I create another page, if I call it index2, so I'm just going to quickly create another page. I'm going to do a save as, and I'm going to save this one as index2. So now I've got index2, and we can see that both index and index2, they're going to be the same page. They're just going to be linked to, so I'm just going to type in JavaScript so that we can actually see something within the page. So we're going to call this JavaScript 2, and maybe it should have been the other way around, but JavaScript 1, JavaScript 2, and now go back out to our browser. So we're going to refresh that, and we're going to see that we do have, so right now it's linking out from that external file, and if I take that and if I copy it over and if I do index2.html, we see that we're able to access that very same file. And the benefit again is now if I want to change this message across my entire website, and all I have to do is update the one JavaScript file, and now when I go out, I have it on two separate pages, that new message popping up here. When I refresh it again, we should see that new message that's popped up. So that's the main benefit of doing it that way, and it just really does save you a lot of time, as well as whenever you're developing websites and web content, the best thing to do is always to separate out the logic. Even when it comes to CSS, you should have a separate CSS page linking out to your CSS files in order to keep everything separate. And when you come back to your website, you'll look at it maybe 6 months down the line, you can very easily say, okay, well, I don't have to go through all of this HTML code and try to pick out what JavaScript is and what I'm doing with it. I just have to go to that one main file, and from there I can access the JavaScript. Also, on a side note as well, when you are coming back to your files, a good idea is always to comment out what you want to do. So this is a comment, and it's actually not going to show up within the JavaScript. So if I've got an inline comment, and if I wanted to just write, this is for a demo, can be removed, this is where I can add in notes on what my JavaScript is doing. And again, this is really good when you're referencing things down the line and you come back to this 6 months later and you're wondering why you have alert, new message. Well, I've got a comment here that tells me what's happening. And if you have a whole bunch of commenting information, you can open and close a comment in this fashion. And so anything here will not be rendered out. So this is the same thing as what we were doing here with the commenting. And as you can see, the Aptana Studio is actually, it's being able to recognize that it's opening and closing. So anything in between here is going to not get rendered out. And this is also great if you've got a bunch of JavaScript code and you just simply want to comment it out so it's not, it doesn't come out within the JavaScript. This is another great way to accomplish this. So make sure that you're documenting and commenting along the way when you're building out your code. It's going to save you a lot of time down the line. And another way to communicate back and forth while we're on communication back and forth is to do a console log. And this is another great way to reach this point. And I'm just going to do another console log. Again, another point reached. And I'm going to just comment all of this out so that actually the alert isn't going to show up anymore. And now we can actually go to either one of these, index page or index 2, and I can refresh it. And so you don't actually see anything happening because it's all commented out. And in order to access information from the console, all you have to do is open up your Web Dev Tools, and we can see that within the Web Dev Tools console, and this is the same place we're actually able to type and add code, we can see reach this point, another point reached. So this is a way to communicate back and forth from your code if you have certain variables or values that you want to output. This is a great place to output those values. So if I had something like, it's going to set up a quick variable, I'm going to equal it to 0. And we're also going to get more into variables and how they function within the next lesson. So this is just quickly, I'm setting up a variable and I'm going to just add it into my string. And then here, I'm just going to add 1 to that value, and I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to just copy, paste this, and add it over here. So if at any point I actually want to know what A equals, and I don't know, and the code is running, it's rendering out, and I just want to know what the value is of A at this point. Obviously for this example, this is just to illustrate how we would use it. Usually you'd probably have more complex functionality where you'd have a bunch of calculations and you wouldn't actually be able to physically look at this and say, okay, well, A is 0 here, it's 1, 2. So you would actually have a more complex situation where you would want to pull those variables out. So I'm going to refresh this, and now we can see a better example of how to use console where we've trying to get this value of A, and now we're seeing how A increments, and we see the last value of A. And this gives us a better idea of where we are with the code. So these are all just great tools and great way to use JavaScript to get going with JavaScript. Also troubleshooting JavaScript quite a lot in the console. So again, it's a great, Chrome is a great browser for developers because of the console and the power of the console itself.